Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Tonight's discussion is centered around pestilence. True piety does not consist of turning your faces toward the east and the west, but the true pious is he who believes in Allah, the last day, and the angels, and the revelation, and the prophets, and spend his substance however much he himself may cherish it, upon his near relative, Zawil al-Qurba, the orphans, the needy, the Masakin, the Miskin, and the wayfarer, Ibn Sabil, and the beggars, As-Sabiqun, those who ask, and the beggars, and for the freeing of human beings from bondage. Now remember, we talked about in other ayahs that a free man is free under all circumstances, whether he's challenged, whether he uses sabr and patience to maintain his freedom and his liberation, whether he's caught and imprisoned. And here it's talked about and constant the beggars, and for the freeing of the human beings from bondage. The biggest bondage is service to shaitan. The biggest bondage is to be absorbed by jahiliyyah, the dunya. That's the biggest slavery, to be slavery to the world. And the biggest freedom is to be free from that world and attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then this person is constant in prayer and renders the purifying dues, that is zakat. And the truly pious are they who keep their promises whenever they promise, and are patient in misfortune and hardship, and in the time of peril, that means panic and all types of misfortune. It is they that have proved themselves true, and it is they who are conscious of God, the God-fearing. So tonight we want to talk a little bit about pestilence. This ayat talks about free from bondage, that is free from jahiliyyah, free from the dunya, free from the gravitational pull of the material world that holds us down to itself. That's why the Quran says, "Oh, you believe, what is the matter with you when you are asked to go forth in the cause of Allah? You cling heavily to the earth." That means you cling to the mundane things. You cling to the tangible things, things that you can see and touch and taste, family, friends, associations, wealth, power, horses, all of those things you cling to, because we can see those things. Going forth in the cause of Allah may cause us to become a spiritual giant. Like in this world, you know, where many people are overdeveloped physically. I mean, if you look at muscle builders, bodybuilders, hey man, these guys for the last 30 or 40 years been off the chain. They're out of all proportion to what's, maybe it's just the time frame that I came from, because in those days a bodybuilder wanted to have a nice body, not these people now are just they got muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle. I mean, they're just unbelievable. It's not usable. When I was coming up, if you had 20-inch arms, I think I had 19, but if you had 20-inch arms, you was The first guy to get 20-inch arms in the United States was Leroy Colbert in one of the gyms of New York, a big Negro. He had 20-inch arms. That was unbelievable. Now they got 25s. I mean, they're just like, they're overdeveloped physically. And America has that characteristic, but they're undeveloped spiritually. Imagine if they use all those special, I mean, to get that big, you gotta use, it takes time, it takes focus, you gotta concentrate on what you're doing. And you search your body all the time to find out, now which part of my body do I have to put in proportion with the rest of it? You know, and therefore you have to do those special little tedious exercises that you would really rather not do, but they develop a part of your body that people may not see only in a contest. So we find that we live in a society that's overdeveloped physically and underdeveloped spiritually. This is why we chose our jihad here and in California as a spiritual jihad. It's a simple tactic. I don't see why we have to keep mentioning it, but we do. That we have declared jihad. That means to struggle relentlessly against the system of oppression. But we will struggle spiritually in counter-distinction to physically. Why? It's just simple. They overdeveloped physically and underdeveloped spiritually. We can't lose. There is no law. You can't lose because the tactic and the strategy, and it ain't something we just run across. It took years of thinking, because imagine where we are. We talk about Star Trek, and Star Trek, what does that mean? Go beyond where anybody else has gone. You got to realize the first step, Negro development. You know, what they called in those days a big nigger. Do you know what they did at that time? You look at the movies of those eras. The first Superfly movie was about a drug dealer that wanted to quit dealing. And he kind of trapped the white people. So he left. He left with $150,000. Somebody was studying somebody. There's only one Negro in the United States that I know that left the United States with $150,000. There's only one. And Gordon Parks didn't know nothing about that hustle. He was a writer, a picture taker, all of that. But that gangster game, as far as I know, for him to write in detail about it, I don't know. White man 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago in Iran, a big professor, he just said to me outwardly, do you think Gordon Parks was a CIA agent? I didn't even answer because I knew what he was saying. He was trying to tell me that as far as his knowledge research was, he was. Gordon Parks wrote about that, Superfly. Not just late Superfly, that guy ain't did nothing. Now, Superfly TNT, where did he go? What are the scenes in Superfly TNT? When I was in McNeil Island, the U.S. penitentiary up there, we saw, in '74, we saw Superfly TNT. You know what all the California Negroes turned around? They said, nigga, you get your royalties off of that? Everybody knew there was nobody else in the, and what did Superfly, when he worked with the so-called African Rebellion. Muhammad Babu, the same guy you see in Malcolm X's things, that was one of my best friends. Muhammad Babu. You know, I didn't even know who I was being introduced to at first. Because I hadn't had time to study Malcolm in that much detail. Superfly TNT, think about it now. Superfly TNT, finally, he comes to what draws him to where he's supposed to, the big minister's house when he's all beat up and everything, is the Adhan. He said, meet me, my house is across from the mosque, right? And you see Superfly, eyes all puffed up, getting to Islam. During the picture, it tried to show, I think they showed an Eid celebration, probably in Nigeria or something like that. You remember the,
Yeah.
hey man, when all the Negroes in the pen saw that, the white folks made a mistake. First with Superfly, then Superfly TNT. Because they showed people real Islam and they showed how it felt to be back in Africa. I mean, it was really, in those days, you would technically kiss the ground. You felt like, and to see the ladies walking with those things on their head and them bright color and that singing, they were just doing it naturally. I said, man, this is a big deal. And it was a big deal. It was just serious. Now, what did they do after that? First of all, Superfly turned the Negroes from revolutionaries. I mean, it was an instantaneous that I could take an instant thing and shake it up and drink it. The Negroes, hair uncurled and straightened out, and then Lord Jesus, and they jumped in them Cadillacs overnight. So part of it, the white man was serious, but it let the Negroes see Africa, and it let them see real Africa, real Islam. So those Negroes, just praying the opening prayer, which really should be the closing prayer, and then they see the people, and they all moving that, hey man, in the ruku, all in bright colors, clothes, hey man. They said, what kind of that Islam y'all be doing, man? Yeah, we're trying. But it was a year later that we made the transition. We started the transition. The other thing was, in Oakland, that's all everybody talked about. So then they come out with another movie, The Mac. Where's The Mac at? It's in Oakland. Who's in the movie? It's Richard Pryor and the other guy, Goldie, but everybody else is from Oakland. So when I see the movie, I see all my homeboys. They in the barbershop. Oh, that's Andrew Ward, that's so-and-so. The two Macs of the years, Ted Ward and Frank Ward. Ted Ward and Willie Ward. And they dedicated the film to Frank Ward, who had been killed. When I come home, I find out when they was making the movie, he had got hold to one of them white movie star ladies and was headed to turning her out, and he just disappeared. Some people said it was a kilo of cocaine. But it's just possible that anything could have happened. But why did they do that in Oakland? Because in Oakland, in those days, everybody was talking about Big Hank. Big Hank in Africa. Big Hank did this. Big Hank could do that. Big Hank could bar the revolution. That's all he talked about. So they put the Negroes in Oakland on the movie screen so they talk about them. Do you know it worked? Yeah, it worked. In other words, somebody, let's say it just happened and it wasn't real, something like that, but it sure fit into a pattern. You know what I mean? It sure is a coincidence. So I'm saying is this. We're living in a time right now. And this time, well, anyone would say that this is our time. All the things we've been discussing ever since we've been doing it is been on time. Yeah. Everything is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. The other thing is that nobody have been through the stages of development. Okay, let's take 3 stages of development. The first, being a big Negro. Well, being a big Negro, you gotta go through a lot of development. You gotta, and suppose you get a break and you get to acquire all the physical and materialism until it's just materialism. You actually not get sick of it, but it doesn't serve, you buy 1 Cadillac and you're just happy as you can be. You buy 2 Cadillacs, that's still grinning. But after you buy 5 or 6 of them, you got them parked all around and you have nothing to do but acquire cars and then businesses popping up everywhere. And then the physical challenges. The police trying to get rid of you. If the Negroes are jealous, right? If somebody always trying to drop women on you, they women and that's a dangerous way of life. It's exciting, but it's also could be dangerous. Allah prepare you for a fight before you get into it, and that's what that was. It was preparation. What about the second stage, stage 2? Stage 2 is higher than any Negro had, the Scarface thing, I can call that, down in Colombia. No Negroes did that. And the money for what? To take back to Africa to help the movement. That means you had, in stage 2, you would have already grown above, let's call it Jahiliyyah. Even in South America, we had fincas, farms and stuff like that. But I slept in the maid quarters, because down there everybody, even in a 2-bedroom apartment, you have a maid, I slept in the maid's quarters with black albums on the wall, So, yeah, I slept on the floor, well, a mattress, But it was a psychological distancing from the love of materiality. We made money for the sake of making money to help the movement. When the movement didn't keep up with us, we said, well, we quit. That's stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 3 would be the last 40 years or more. Let's call it a whole stage. But inside that is stage after stage. Okay, so the stage where we are now is just like what we said years ago. We have to help the people that were coming against us. We don't need a whole new group of people. We're just gonna deal with the people we've been had. Like I always said, I like the tattletales around me. I like their family, I like all of that. There's no sense going out and recruiting a whole different group of people. They're gonna be polices too. So, as an example, that means Abdul Malik and people like that. That means we have to reach out to try to explain to them in their terms, in their life, what made them do what they did. Remember, we're going beyond what other people is going through. They don't do that in the movement. Black people or anybody, if you belong to a communist party or this party or that party, usually they just kill you, right? Or they excommunicate you. That's the rule. Some of the parties, if you break discipline, you have to be goodbye for you. That's the rule. They have to execute that rule. That is the discipline of most political parties, whether socialists or communists or what have you. If you turn traitor, or if you're an informer, or if they find out anything like that, the FBI is skilled at it with it. One brother in Oakland, 68 to 69, he was a minor agent. So they took him out, headed to San Jose, and they killed the brother. Well, one of them was a real Black Panther. The other two was FBI agents. Okay. The other periods, this thing about going beyond where everybody else has gone, we really have to do that. And in studying the deen, remember, it's not a ritual to turn your face toward the east and the west. Be it righteousness. It's to believe, and it outlines what the beliefs are. Then to give your money, although you like it yourself. Right? You give your money, although you like the money yourself. Right? Then it mentions relatives, and it mentions, thou will qurba relatives, and to be patient during periods of panic and adversity. And throughout all of these trials and tribulations and adversity, like what we're going through right now, that's why the title of tonight's talk is Pestilence. And I'll get back to the other part in a minute, but one of the old stories about the old Arab sheikh was going, he left somewhere and he was going